Chapter 58. You brought this onto yourself. Chapter 58. You brought this onto yourself. The sky fell? Dao Yue scratched her head, failing to understand Jiyu Iren's point. This is also my first time coming across such a situation, Jiyu Iren said with a bitter smile. All I know is that the moment you tried to take action, I got the feeling that the sky was falling, and an indescribable sense of death filled the living room. Are you sure nothing's wrong with your mind, senior brother? Dao Yue asked when she saw Jiyu Iren's abnormal behavior. SHI plus Feng was nothing more than a Tier 3 player during his peak. Even if he used to be Shadow's guild leader, Shadow was only a second-rate guild. In the eyes of the various superpowers, SHI plus Feng was nothing more than an insignificant ant. Yet, now, Jiyu Iren was describing SHI plus Feng as if he was someone amazing. Those unaware of Jiyu Iren's abilities might even think that he had gone crazy. Anyway, we should be more careful of SHI plus Feng, Jiyu Iren said. Don't forget that he managed to see through your strength with just a glance. He isn't as simple as he looks. However, I have already told this matter to Teacher, and Teacher has said that he will make a trip here soon. It wouldn't be late for us to teach SHI plus Feng a lesson at that time. Teacher is coming here in person? Dao Yue's eyes lit up when she heard Jiyu Iren's words. That's wonderful. We'll see how SHI plus Feng continues behaving arrogantly at that time. Their teacher was a legendary individual in world domination. If their teacher visited Jinhai City, SHI plus Feng would have to hand over the complete version of the Refinement Realm exercise even if he didn't want to. Meanwhile, inside SHI plus Feng's villa, after Jiyu Iren and Dao Yue left, SHI plus Feng quietly stood by the window and took an extra look at Jiyu Iren. It seems I have underestimated the superpowers of this world. I didn't think he would notice my intentions of attacking just now. SHI plus Feng's face took on a slightly serious look as he watched Jiyu Iren and Dao Yue driving away in their car. I'll have to raise my physical fitness as quickly as possible. On an individual level, SHI plus Feng did not see Jiyu Iren and Dao Yue as a threat at all. Even if his body was in poor shape right now, he could still beat the two of them effortlessly. After all, he had been a neutralizing grandmaster and a mental strength grandmaster during his previous life. Few people could match him even in the upper zone. While his current physique might be terrible, the skills he honed during his previous life remained. He would have no problems defeating even internal force masters in his current state. Not to mention, neither Jiyu Iren nor Dao Yue was an internal force master. However, Jiyu Iren's arrival had also served as a wake-up call for SHI plus Feng. He would probably have a tough time going up against the various superpowers' old monsters. After all, the difference in physical fitness between them was far too massive. It wasn't a gap that could be easily bridged using techniques alone. Hence, he needed to improve his physical fitness as quickly as possible. At the very least, he needed to reach the half-step master standard. If he could accomplish that, he would be able to deal with most problems he would encounter. Thinking up to this point, SHI plus Feng reluctantly put on his jacket and drove his car to Jinhai University. He had to admit that being a teacher was truly a tedious job. However, this was the most reliable way SHI plus Feng could think of to acquire S-rank nutrient fluids. It was true that he had many things he could use to trade with the various superpowers, with many of these things being even better than the exercise Jiyu Iren and Dao Yue sought. However, all transactions were established based on equality. He would simply be seeking an early death if he tried to trade with the various superpowers without having sufficient strength. Jinhai University, GODS Domain Academy, teaching block number 3, although Class says had only started officially yesterday, many of the academy's well-known instructors were busy conducting special training with their apprentices outside of the academy's campus, so they didn't have time to hold Class says at all. Even so, students still flooded the teaching block. When SHI plus Feng entered teaching block number 3, he found himself looking at many instructors fighting over the available Class says in the lobby. What's going on? Teaching block number 3 had over 200 Class rooms. Yet, now, only a few were left. Moreover, all of the remaining Class rooms were superlarge Class rooms. Not even one small class room remained available right now. The teaching block's superlarge class rooms were unique compared to the other class rooms available. Apart from being able to accommodate 400 people, the superlarge class rooms also had state-of-the-art technology that allowed occupants to connect their GODS domain IDs and conduct virtual battles and guidance inside the class room. Only, apart from senior instructors, other instructors wouldn't usually touch these class rooms. The reason for this was simple: these superlarge class rooms were simply too expensive to rent. An instructor would have to fork out 30,000 points to hold one lecture in a superlarge class room. It was simply impossible for junior and intermediate instructors to recuperate such a hefty cost. While SHI Plus Feng was feeling surprised, a tall and robust man approached him. Meanwhile, this man was none other than Luo Tiancheng. Why, if it isn't instructor SHI Plus? Luo Tiancheng exclaimed with a smile as he looked at SHI Plus Feng. What's wrong? Can't find a class room? Well, I guess that's normal after the recent announcement. With the opportunity to visit the secret pavilion's branch headquarters presented to them, anyone would at least try to compete for it. If you didn't know, the secret pavilion has recently announced that it is letting more students and instructors visit its branch headquarters. So, apart from the senior instructors, our academy is also letting 5 other instructors to take part in the tour. Meanwhile, these 5 instructor slots would be granted to the top 5 performing instructors today. Moreover, junior instructors can even get promoted to intermediate instructors depending on their performances. Of course, while you might be student Wu Lingling's instructor, you won't receive any special treatment, instructor SHI+. If you want to partake IP8 in the tour, you'll have to compete for these top 5 positions just like everyone else. After all, a student's excellence and a teacher's excellence shouldn't be confused with each other. Only through holding class says can an instructor adequately display their strength. Otherwise, instructors who only have luck to rely on would only bring shame to our Jinhai University if they visited the secret pavilion's branch headquarters. Don't you think so, instructor SHI+? That's right, SHI+ Feng nodded. Then, he looked at Luo Tiancheng with conviction in his eyes, saying, "What you say is very much correct. Such a method of selection will allow the academy to best demonstrate the standard of its instructors. I didn't think our academy would be so generous to its instructors." Originally, SHI+ Feng had been pondering how he could quickly get promoted to an intermediate instructor. Now, he wouldn't have to worry about this problem anymore. After saying so, SHI+ Feng promptly chose to rent a superlarge class room via the class room reservation board in the lobby. Then, he went upstairs and made his way to the class room he rented. A superlarge class room? Is he nuts? Luo Tiancheng was momentarily dumbfounded when he saw that SHI+ Feng had rented a superlarge class room. However, a moment later, he turned to look at SHI+ Feng's departing figure and sneered, thinking, "You brought this onto yourself. Let's see how you'll enter the top 5 after this crazy stunt." Had SHI+ Feng chosen to borrow a class room from the other instructors, he might have had a chance to compete for the top 5 instructor spots. After all, he had students such as Wu Lingling, who didn't care about spending large amounts of points. If he managed to rope in 1 or 2 more idiots into his exorbitant class it was entirely possible for him to rank among the top 5. However, by choosing a superlarge class room, SHI+ Feng had put himself at a deficit of 30,000 points right off the bat. In this situation, it'd be a miracle if he could even earn enough points to cover his expenses, let alone compete for the top 5 instructor slots. Not to mention, it wasn't even certain if Wu Lingeline would continue attending SHI+ Feng's class says. After all, Wu Xiaoxiao had no intentions of letting SHI+ Feng remain as Wu Lingling's instructor. While Luo Tiancheng was secretly snickering and getting ready to head to his class room, a loud commotion suddenly occurred at the teaching block's entrance. Subsequently, a silver-haired girl and a pet IT-looking girl entered the building. Meanwhile, these two girls were none other than Wu Xiaoxiao and Wu Lingling. Chapter 59. Watching him rise, watching him entertain important guests, watching him. Chapter 59. Watching him rise, watching him entertain important guests, watching him. Sure enough, this is going to be interesting. Before seeing Wu Xiaoxiao, Luo Tiancheng still felt that SHI plus Feng could recoup his losses at the very least by relying on Wu Lingling and a few more of his students. However, now that Wu Xiaoxiao was here, SHI plus Feng shouldn't even think of earning back the points he put into renting the super equals large class room. The reason why Luo Tiancheng thought so was because of a shocking piece of news he received not long ago. Apparently, while Wu Xiaoxiao was out IP8ing in the Super Guild Crimson Emperor's special training, she showed relatively good talent and performance, so she managed to get herself selected for Crimson Emperor's priority training list. This news had excited Dazzle Wave's executives greatly. After all, Crimson Emperor would choose only 10 players from its affiliated powers to offer priority training. Meanwhile, not only did Crimson Emperor have over 100 affiliated powers, but each affiliated power had even sent 2 or 3 representatives to partake IP8 in its training camp. Thus, the difficulty of ranking within the top 10 out of these several hundred people was enormous. Now that Wu Xiaoxiao was slated to receive the treatment of Crimson Emperor's top-tier internal talents, if no mishaps occurred, she would become one of Dazzle Wave's successors in the future. Her current status in Dazzle Wave and GODS domain was completely different from before. With her current status and ident. Wu Xiaoxiao would have no trouble providing more resources for her little sister Wu Lingling. She could even recommend Wu Lingling to Crimson Emperor, allowing Wu Lingling to partake IP8 in Crimson Emperor's next training camp and potentially get selected for priority training. Currently, the various powers of GODS domain were in urgent need of experts because of the miniature ancient world, and they were doing everything they could to fulfill this shortage. Thus, Crimson Emperor's next training camp might arrive much earlier than expected. It might even be in the works already. After all, a superpower would always act while looking a few steps ahead. Unlike the average power in GODS domain, the various superpowers didn't have to worry much about resources when planning for the future. Shortly after Wu Xiaoxiao and Wu Lingling entered the teaching block, another commotion occurred at the entrance as a refined-looking middle-aged man wearing black-framed glasses walked into the building along with a young man and a young woman. CRAP. What kind of day is today? Senior Wu Xiaoxiao's arrival just now was already plenty surprising. I never thought that 2 of the Academy's 4 heavenly kings would also come here. Is there some kind of big shot teaching here today? Why is Instructor Qi here as well? Don't senior instructors get to attend the tour without having to compete? Upon seeing this trio, every student and instructor nearby couldn't help but be surprised. This was because the middle-aged man was none other than the Academy's famous senior instructor Qi, while the young man behind him was Liang Feng, and the young woman was Chen Zio. Despite looking thin and sickly, Liang Feng was the youngest out of the Academy's 4 heavenly kings, and he was currently only a second-year student. As for Chen Zio, she, too, was one of the 4 heavenly kings. Meanwhile, both of them were Instructor Qi's students. It was also because of these 2 students that Instructor Qi managed to hold an absolute position in the Academy and stand toe-to-toe with Wu Xiaoxiao's instructor. What brings you here today, Instructor Qi? Didn't you plan to provide special training for Jiyu Tong and the others before the secret pavilion tour? Luo Tiancheng asked in confusion after approaching Instructor Qi. The Academy placed significant importance on the secret pavilion tour this time, so much so that it had promised generous rewards to the 4 senior instructors. After all, the tour this time would determine the standings of Jin Hai University's GODS Domain Academy among the other academies in the province. Thus, all 4 senior instructors were privately training their respective apprentices in preparation for the tour. Zio says that Instructor SHI plus S class says are amazing, Instructor Qi said as she gave a grumpy look at Chen Zio. I'm skeptical of her claims, so I came here to take a look for myself. In response, Chen Zio simply made an said smile and didn't offer any explanations. You are thinking too highly of that SHI plus Feng, Instructor Qi. How can his class possibly be better than yours? Luo Tiancheng was shocked when he heard Instructor Qi's words. Moreover, SHI plus Feng is charging 10,000 points for one class. That's simply daylight robbery. Instructor Qi held a prestigious position in the academy. The average instructor in the academy would even try to attend Instructor Qi's class. Says. This was because Instructor Qi used to be a core member of the top adventurer team Heaven's Wind. However, after Heaven's Wind's disbandment, Instructor Qi stopped being active in GODS domain and focused on teaching at Jinhai University instead. One shouldn't underestimate Instructor Qi simply because he had a refined and scholarly appearance. Although Instructor Qi could only exhibit combat standards at the refinement realm when manipulating his in-game character due to his deteriorated mental state, he had reached the peak of the flowing water realm during his prime. It was even rumored that he was only one step away from reaching the void realm. For this reason, Instructor Qi held connections with many major powers and even superpowers. I know that, which is why I came prepared, Instructor Qi said, nodding. This, Luo Tiancheng was at a loss for words. Then, he turned to look at Liang Feng in the hopes of getting the boy to put some sense into Instructor Qi. Currently, every additional person that attended SHI plus Feng's class SS would increase SHI plus Feng's chances of attending the secret pavilion tour, so Luo Tiancheng couldn't allow Instructor Qi's group of 3 to attend SHI plus Feng's class SS. Meanwhile, it was well known that Liang Feng had a conflicting relations. HI plus P with Chen Zio. If Chen Zio was adamant in siding with SHI plus Feng, Liang Feng's reaction would naturally oppose her. Don't worry, Instructor Luo. I also brought enough points with me, Liang Feng said, completely misunderstanding Luo Tiancheng's signal. Luo Tiancheng was flabbergasted when he heard Liang Feng's words. Was that what he meant? Or was this one of the academy's so-called geniuses? Amidst Luo Tiancheng's shock, Wu Xiaoxiao and Wu Lingling suddenly walked over to the group. Hel Lo, Instructor Qi. Despite her cold nature, Wu Xiaoxiao had taken the initiative to greet Instructor Qi. May I know if I can trouble you with something? Wu Xiaoxiao's sudden greeting had surprised Luo Tiancheng and the surrounding people. Wu Xiaoxiao was known for being a prideful lone wolf in the academy. Other than her instructor, she would never take the initiative to greet anyone in the academy. Yet, now, she had taken the initiative to greet Instructor Qi. Is she trying to band together with Instructor Qi to pressure SHI plus Feng? When Luo Tiancheng thought about Wu Lingling's present situation, he felt that the likelihood of that happening was high. Currently, Wu Lingling behaved as if she were possessed as she adamantly insisted on remaining as SHI plus Feng's apprentice. She refused to change her mind no matter what others said to her. However, if the academy's brightest star and one of the academy's prestigious senior instructors joined hands to exert pressure on SHI plus Feng would have no choice but to abandon Wu Lingling lest he wanted to get isolated in the academy. Thinking up to this point, Luo Tiancheng grew a lot more spirited. How can I possibly refuse a request from student Wu Xiaoxiao? Instructor Qi was similarly surprised to see Wu Xiaoxiao greet him. Then, he happily said, ask away, can I buy some points from you, instructor? Wu Xiaoxiao said in slight embarrassment. I spent most of my points at the advanced training hall previously, and I don't even have 10,000 points on me right now. Yet, my little sister refuses to lend me any points no matter what. May I know if you can sell me a couple 100,000 points? Chapter 60. Chapter 60. As soon as Wu Xiaoxiao finished speaking, Luo Tiancheng, who was about to laugh at SHI plus Feng's predicament, was promptly dumbfounded. Luo Tiancheng could understand Instructor Qi and Liang Feng holding an interest in SHI plus Feng's class SS. After all, they had Chen Zio fanning the flames from the side. However, it made zero sense why someone as prideful as Wu Xiaoxiao would attend SHI plus Feng's class SS. At this moment, Luo Tiancheng couldn't help but think that Wu Xiaoxiao was playing a joke on him. Or was it this world that was joking with him? In Luo Tiancheng's opinion, SHI plus Feng would already be fortunate if Wu Xiaoxiao didn't give him a beating. Yet, not only was Wu Xiaoxiao going out of her way to buy points to attend SHI plus Feng's lesson right now, but she was even buying points in the hundreds of thousands. Evidently, she didn't plan to stop at just one lecture. This was SHI plus Feng they were talking about. Even at his peak, SHI plus Feng was merely a Tier 3 expert who hadn't even reached the refinement realm. It was only due to the early advantage he had accumulated during the early stages of God's domain that he managed to become Shadow's guild leader. Although Luo Qiancheng was slightly inferior to SHI plus Feng when it came to individual strength, he was confident he said SHI plus Feng when it came to teaching standards. So, what qualifications did SHI plus Feng have to attract the Academy's top-tier talents and a senior instructor to attend his class? However, what Luo Qiancheng didn't know was that Wu Xiaoxiao was only behaving this way because of hidden soul. She naturally had to meet the person capable of recruiting the help of such a monster. If SHI plus Feng was indeed as amazing as her little sister described, she planned to recommend him to Crimson Emperor. After all, Crimson Emperor was in urgent need of experts right now. A couple 100,000? I don't have that many points on me right now, Instructor Qi said, shaking his head. Then, he turned to look at Chen Zio, who wore a delighted look on her face, and awkwardly said, I did have a lot of points before, but I sold most of them to Zio already. I only have a little more than 60,000 points right now, but I still need to take a look at Instructor SHI plus S-Class. So I can only sell you 50,000 points. Ever since Chen Zio had attended SHI plus Feng's first lecture, she had become a harvesting machine for Academy points. She had even praised SHI plus Feng to the sky. If it wasn't for the fact that Chen Zio had indeed reached the refinement realm after attending SHI plus Feng's class, Instructor Qi wouldn't have believed her claims at all. It should be known that Chen Zio had been stuck on the cusp of the refinement realm for a long time already. Even though her techniques were already on the level of refinement realm experts, she couldn't reach the refinement realm no matter what. Yet, SHI plus Feng had resolved Chen Zio's problem after just one lesson. Even as an instructor, Instructor Qi couldn't help but find this unbelievable. Okay. I'll take all of them. Wu Xiaoxiao transferred the credits for the 50,000 points to Instructor Qi without hesitation, giving no time for Instructor Qi to even think or hesitate. Meanwhile, Luo Qiancheng couldn't help but be dumbfounded by Wu Xiaoxiao's actions. Was SHI plus Feng's class really so magical that Wu Xiaoxiao saw the need to seek points so desperately? Thank you, Instructor Qi. We'll be taking our leave now, Wu Xiaoxiao said after seeing the 50,000 points being credited to her account. Then, she promptly left for SHI plus Feng's class room with Wu Lingling. Seeing this, Chen Zio also hurriedly urged, let's hurry over there as well, Instructor. Instructor SHI plus S-Class. will be starting soon. After looking at the time and seeing that SHI plus Feng's class, was indeed starting soon, Instructor Qi quickly concluded his conversation with Luo Qiancheng and went upstairs with Chen Zio and Liang Feng. This world must have gone crazy. It must have. Luo Qiancheng was in complete and utter disbelief right now. Even though SHI plus Feng was no longer Shadow's guild leader. Even though SHI plus Feng had already been knocked down from his lofty position. Even though SHI plus Feng had already been reduced to nothing but a loser. For some inexplicable reason, SHI plus Feng was SHI plus Ning even brighter than when he was Shadow's guild leader. It should be known that Wu Xiaoxiao and Instructor Qi were individuals that even Lan Hailong, the president of Lan Hua Group, was trying to befriend. Yet, now, these two people were taking the initiative to attend SHI plus Feng's class. Meanwhile, shortly after Wu Xiaoxiao and Instructor Qi entered SHI plus Feng's class room, waves quickly spread throughout the campus. What's going on? Who is this Instructor SHI plus? How did he get Wu Xiaoxiao and two of the Academy's heavenly kings to attend his class? Could this Instructor SHI plus be some big shot that came from another city? That's not right. I know that Instructor SHI plus. If I remember correctly, he should be Shadow's former guild leader. He only came to work as an instructor after Shadow dismissed him. Are you sure that's not a mistake? Even if Gu Iran were to hold a class SS right now, Instructor Qi and Senior Wu Xiaoxiao wouldn't necessarily attend it. It is especially true for Senior Wu Xiaoxiao. She is currently being nurtured as a top-tier talent by Crimson Emperor. It wouldn't be long before she enters the A-League at this rate. Unless Instructor SHI Plus has incredibly high combat standards, why would she attend his class SS? Many students were originally unfamiliar with SHI Plus Feng's name. However, thanks to Wu Xiaoxiao and the others, SHI Plus Feng had instantly become the center of attention of the entire academy. After all, whether it was Wu Xiaoxiao or the academy's 4 heavenly kings, every one of them had a dazzling future ahead of them. The fact that these people chose to attend SHI Plus Feng's class SS proved that he wasn't ordinary by any means. For a time, some students started fervently looking into SHI Plus Feng's history. In the meantime, inside the faculty office near the teaching block, Yaoyu, this academy of yours really is interesting, Zhui Yarlin, wearing a short black dress, said as she lazily pointed at a dock. You meant displaying SHI Plus Feng's information. To think that the famous Silver Witch in God's domain would go out of her way to attend a junior instructor's lesson. Is this guy really just the former guild leader of Shadow? That is the case on paper, at the very least, Lin Yaoyu said as she sorted through the doc. You meant on her desk. However, judging by how he behaves, I find it hard to believe that he is a former guild leader dismissed by his guild. He behaves more like a laid-back princeling instead. In that case, he shouldn't be as simple as he looks. He might even be hiding a lot of secrets. Otherwise, there is no reason why the Silver Witch would attend his class SS, Zhui Yarlin said, a hint of interest appearing in her eyes as she looked at SHI Plus Feng's photo. It really makes you wonder what was going through Lan Hailong's mind to actually exclude such an individual from his guild. Hearing Zhui Yarlin's words, Lin Yaoyu grew a little exasperated as she said, SHI Plus Feng might be extraordinary, but he is still far from being a match for Mr. Black Flame. Have you thought over my proposal yet? I understand your point. Joining Zero Wing in a personal capacity is indeed a good idea for us. However, after thinking it through, I feel that it is best if you give your slot to Big Sis first, Zhui Yarlin said, her originally lazy expression suddenly becoming serious. You and I both know what kind of talent and strength Big Sis possesses. She is, without a doubt, a monster class SS expert. If not for her family holding her down, she would have long since become a big shot in God's domain. If she can join Zero Wing, it might help resolve her predicament. At that time, with Big Sis's talent, it shouldn't take long before she acquires an invitation slot. It wouldn't be late for me to join at that time. Big Sis, is it? A hint of excitement appeared in Lin Yaoyu's eyes when she heard Zhui Yarlin's words. You're right. That might be for the better if we can persuade Big Sis. I'll try to contact her within the next few days. Lin Yaoyu had nothing but praise and admiration for the person she and Zhui Yarlin referred to as Big Sis. If not for some problems their Big Sis faced with her family and guild during the early years of God's domain, she would have probably been standing at the top of God's domain right now. Moreover, even before God's domain's launch, their Big Sis had already been regarded as one of the Godesses in the virtual gaming world. The Snow Godess, Gentle Snow. Chapter 61, Academy's Apex. Chapter 61, Academy's Apex Third Teaching Block, Top Floor Superlarge class. Room, including SHI Plus Feng, a total of 35 people occupied the SPA Sias class. Room that could sit 400 people. Yet, despite less than 10% of the class room being filled, the class room's occupancy had caused an uproar throughout the campus. This was because, in just one class, SHI Plus Feng had earned a whopping 220,000 academy points. Even after deducting the 30,000 point fee to use the class room, he would still make a net profit of 190,000 points. With this many points, SHI plus Feng had become the undisputed number 1 on the instructor points list. However, contrasting the noisy campus, the inside of the superlarge class' room was filled with silence. Everyone kept their mouths shut as they focused their attention on SHI plus Feng. It was especially true for Qin Wuchen and the other students apprenticed under SHI plus Feng. Every one of them wore excited looks on their faces, and they thoroughly pushed their 5 senses to their limits for fear of missing out on even one of SHI plus Feng's words. Are freshmen nowadays so rich? Liang Feng, who sat in the last row of the class' room, couldn't help but be surprised when he looked at Qin Wuchen and the others. Liang Feng was aware that SHI plus Feng possessed some ability. Otherwise, Chen Zio couldn't have reached the refinement realm under SHI plus Feng's tutelage. This was also why Liang Feng had taken the initiative to attend SHI plus Feng's class. However, SHI plus Feng's class was anything but cheap. Even if Qin Wuchen and the others were SHI plus Feng's apprentices, they still needed to pay 6,000 points to attend a class. This was an amount even Liang Feng didn't possess when he was in his freshman year. Yet, all 30 of SHI plus Feng's students were in attendance right now. It's not that these freshmen are rich, but that instructor SHI plus S class is really worth the price, Chen Zio said with a faint smile. If I were a freshman, I'd even go as far as to pay 60,000 points just to attend one of instructor SHI plus S class says, let alone 6,000 points. Keep on boasting, Liang Feng said as he rolled his eyes at Chen Zio. Even if instructor SHI plus has some abilities, the development of combat standards isn't something that can be done overnight. Your case is just an outlier. Otherwise, the various superpowers wouldn't be stuck with so few refinement realm experts. What you say might be right, Liang Feng, but what Zio said is also correct, Instructor Qi Lianshan, said as he observed SHI plus Feng, a rare smile appearing on his face. Instructor SHI plus is indeed an extraordinary individual. Setting aside his teaching standards, he definitely has me beat in combat standards. I wouldn't be a match for him even if I were still in my prime. You're no match for him even in your prime, teacher? Is he that strong? Liang Feng couldn't help but be surprised as he turned to look at SHI plus Feng, who currently stood on the podium. He had personally witnessed Qi Lianshan's true strength. Even at his current deteriorated strength, Qi Lianshan could easily get into the mid to upper ranks in the professional league's B-League should he choose to partake. IP 8. Qi Lianshan was probably stronger than even the current Wu Xiaoxiao. If Qi Lianshan was still in his prime, he would definitely rank at the top of the B-League. He might even have a chance at qualifying for the A-League. He is far stronger than you think, Qi Lianshan said, chuckling. You might mistake him for your average civilian because he looks and feels so ordinary. However, it is precisely because he is so ordinary that he is scary. He has already reached a level where he can integrate his every movement with his surroundings. Such a person should be a Void Realm expert at the very least. So, how could I, someone who has only ever reached the Flowing Water Realm, match him? Upon hearing Qi Lianshan's explanation, Liang Feng couldn't help but examine SHI plus Feng again seriously. If SHI plus Feng truly was a Void Realm expert, he would be one of the strongest experts in Jinhai City. Even the various superpowers would fight to recruit him. A tiny place like Jinhai University's GODS Domain Academy wouldn't be able to accommodate him at all. At this time, even Chen Zio was surprised to hear Qi Lianshan's explanation. Although she had long since known that SHI plus Feng was an internal force expert with high combat standards, she never thought SHI plus Feng's combat standard would be this high. With his combat standard, SHI plus Feng could become a top-level executive if he joined a superpower. He could become a frightening existence that qualified to oversee the management of a royal capital. While Liang Feng and Chen Zio were awed by SHI plus Feng's strength, SHI plus Feng scanned the class' room and said in a good mood, since nobody else is joining, let us begin the class. However, as everyone's standard isn't uniform, I will be providing one-on-one instruction to each of you. Which one of you will go first? Instructor SHI+, can I be the first? Wu Xiaoxiao, who sat in the first row, suddenly stood up, her beautiful silver hair coupled with her otherworldly temperament instantly awing everyone in the class room. Sure, come on up, SHI+ Feng said, nodding. He wasn't surprised at all by Wu Xiaoxiao's initiative. Even before entering Jinhai University's GODS Domain Academy, SHI+ Feng had already heard of Wu Xiaoxiao's name. Now that Wu Lingling had become his student, Wu Xiaoxiao would certainly come to test him. SHI+ Feng had no intentions of letting Wu Lingling go. After all, Zero Wing was a guild, and a guild needed experts if it wanted to grow stronger. Not to mention, GODS Domain had never been a single-player game. Meanwhile, although Wu Lingling and the others might not be the most talented players out there, they were still considerably talented. So long as he nurtured them well, they could quickly be of help to him. This was also one of the reasons why he had chosen to come to the GODS Domain Academy in the first place. There was no place more suitable for recruiting rookies than in the GODS Domain Academy. Meanwhile, after SHI+ Feng finished speaking, Wu Xiaoxiao quickly walked up to the podium in a few steps and stared at SHI+ Feng with a penetrating gaze. CRAP. What an exciting situation right off the bat. Liang Feng became greatly interested when Wu Xiaoxiao got onto the podium. The name of the silver which was unique in the GODS Domain Academy. The silver which was much stronger than the Academy's 4 heavenly kings. She had also reached the refinement realm long ago. Meanwhile, although Wu Xiaoxiao had stated that she had come here for guidance today, everyone present knew that that wasn't her goal at all. Instead, she had come here to determine whether SHI+ Feng was qualified to teach Wu Lingling or not. Stay focused, Qi Lianshan reprimanded as he looked at Liang Feng. Wu Xiaoxiao must have gained a significant harvest after her training in Crimson Emperor. If you wish to fight for a high position in GODS Domain in the future, she will inevitably become a mountain that you have to cross. Immediately, Liang Feng and Chen Zio took on a serious attitude. Now that the miniature ancient world was released, a new generation of experts would also emerge. If they wanted to achieve something in GODS Domain in the future, they would have to triumph over these new experts. After all, GODS Domain had limited resources, so the number of players that could stand at the top was naturally limited as well. Chapter 62, Flowing Water Realm. Chapter 62, Flowing Water Realm. Log into your ID, SHI+ Feng said to Wu Xiaoxiao as he pointed at the virtual gaming cabins situated beside the podium. Due to GODS Domain's global popularity and increasing relevance in the real world, entertainment and training centers weren't the only ones with virtual combat rooms nowadays. Even the various GODS Domain academies would have virtual training facilities. Meanwhile, the superlarge class room came equipped with over 100 holographic imaging equipment that could perfectly replicate a person's GODS Domain character in the class room. Moreover, users could operate their characters as if they were moving their real bodies. There wouldn't be any delay in control whatsoever. With this equipment, instructors could provide more in-depth guidance to students even without entering GODS Domain. After hearing SHI+ Feng's words, Wu Xiaoxiao got into a virtual gaming cabin without hesitation. Then, a moment later, a silver-haired woman holding a crystal staff and wearing a golden robe appeared on the podium that measured over a dozen meters in radius. That's the Crimson Meteor. I can't believe Dazzle Wave actually gave her one of their most prized weapons. Liang Feng exclaimed, feelings of shock and envy appearing in his eyes when he saw the crystal staff in Wu Xiaoxiao's hand. The crystal staff was named Crimson Meteor, and it ranked 99th in the GODS Domain Epic Weapon list. One shouldn't underestimate the Epic Staff simply because it was ranked 99th. The GODS Domain Epic Weapon list was a list the Secret Pavilion created, and it featured only 100 of the best epic weapons that existed in the current GODS Domain. Every epic weapon on the list was a supreme weapon capable of rivaling fragmented legendary weapons, and players could use them up to level 150 without having to change weapons. Her robe is not much inferior to the Crimson Meteor, either, Chen Zio said, her eyes similarly filled with jealousy when she looked at Wu Xiaoxiao. The Starlight 8-piece set. This is the epic set equipment that Skyfrost relied on to become a famed smith. I heard that only 3 sets were made. Back when it was first created, one Starlight set could go for a plot of golden land in any of the 5 holy cities. It sure is great to have a major power's backing. She's practically unstoppable in the miniature ancient world with such equipment. I think she can even fight against the mythic monsters in the miniature ancient world, Liang Feng said with a bitter smile. While combat standards were indeed important in God's domain, weapons and equipment were even more important. This was because weapons and equipment served as the foundation of players, whereas combat standards acted as a bonus to this foundation. Without proper equipment, the benefits a player could reap from their combat standard would be significantly reduced. To offer an example, imagine an ordinary player geared in top-tier equipment rated at 100 points. If this ordinary player was capable of exhibiting only 50% of their actual combat power, the actual combat power of this player would be rated at 50 points. Then, imagine a top-tier player capable of exhibiting 90% of their actual combat power geared in average equipment rated at 50 points. The actual combat power of this top-tier player would be rated at only 45 points. Despite having vastly superior combat standards, the top-tier player with average equipment would still be inferior to the ordinary player with top-tier equipment. This was the harsh reality players needed to face in virtual reality games such as God's Domain. Not to mention, combat power was only one of the many bonuses players had to boost their combat power. After factoring in other bonuses, the gap between the two players would only continue to grow. Although Liang Feng and Chen Zhao had also received secret invitations from many first-rate guilds, the amount of support these first-rate guilds were willing to provide them definitely wasn't close to the support Wu Xiaoxiao had received from Dazzle Wave. Now, not only were they inferior to Wu Xiaoxiao in terms of combat standards, but they were also inferior to her in terms of equipment standards. It was a truly despairing situation. Meanwhile, after SHI plus Feng scrutinized Wu Xiaoxiao's equipment for a moment, he nodded and said, "Not bad. Your equipment is good. Do you have any specific guidance you want to receive?" Others might think that Wu Xiaoxiao's equipment standard was excellent, but it could only be considered average for SHI plus Feng. It was especially true now that the current God's domain had yet to join the greater God's domain. These so-called top-tier weapons and equipment would only be useful in the current God's domain. Once this subworld gained access to the greater God's domain, over 99% of the currently available weapons and equipment would fall into disuse. The reason for this was simple. It was because the craftsman's HI plus P level of this subworld was vastly inferior to the craftsman's HI plus P level of other subworlds. In other more developed subworlds, all of the weapons and equipment they produced were close to rivaling mana weapons and equipment. Not only did the items these outer worlds created carry mana, but they could even be repaired using magic crystals. Meanwhile, these mana-imbued items gave players an easier time to use combat techniques, mana techniques, skills, spells, etc., drastically increasing their combat power. Simply put, the bonuses provided by the current God's domain's equipment came in the form of addition, whereas the bonuses provided by outer world equipment came in the form of multiplication. During SHI plus Feng's previous life, it had been a huge shock to everyone when they discovered the craftsman's HI plus P level of more developed subworlds. Meanwhile, after hearing SHI plus Feng's question, Wu Xiaoxiao pondered for a moment before Hidden Soul's figure suddenly popped into her mind. Then, she asked, "I have been having trouble facing the ambush of AS Sa. S since recently, Instructor SHI plus. Is there any way I can deal with these ambushes?" After training with Hidden Soul, Wu Xiaoxiao had come to appreciate the terror of AS Sa. S sins. At the same time, she came to realize how unprepared she was for melee combat. Although she had racked her mind for solutions, not once did she manage to dodge or block Hidden Soul's attacks throughout their several hour-long training session. As soon as Wu Xiaoxiao finished speaking, Qin Wuchen and the others also promptly perked up their ears. Big Sis is so cunning. She's actually having Instructor SHI Plus to help her answer Instructor Soul's challenge. Wu Lingling grew speechless when she heard her elder sister's question. Even so, she still couldn't help but lean forward a little to hear SHI plus Feng's response. Cope with an AS Sin's ambush? Looking at Wu Xiaoxiao, SHI plus Feng calmly said, that's simple. You just need to reach the flowing water realm. Chapter 63, True Flowing Water Realm. Chapter 63, True Flowing Water Realm. Reach the flowing water realm? Wu Xiaoxiao blinked her eyes in disbelief. However, when she looked at SHI plus Feng's expression, it didn't seem like the other party was joking with her. Then, revealing a bitter smile, she said, that is indeed a good solution, but reaching the flowing water realm is easier said than done, Instructor SHI plus. I might have reached the refinement realm for some time already, but I have yet to reach the flowing water realm's threshold. Wu Xiaoxiao naturally yearned to reach the flowing water realm. After all, refinement realm experts were merely considered entry-level experts in the various superpowers. Only after reaching the flowing water realm would an expert be regarded as a mainstay by the various superpowers and granted important tasks to handle. This was because flowing water realm experts could single-handedly influence the outcome of a battle involving thousands of ordinary experts. However, reaching the flowing water realm wasn't an easy feat. The flowing water realm's principles could be regarded as an upgraded form of the refinement realm's principles. To reach the flowing water realm, a player would need to extend the range of their control past their body and onto their opponents. Essentially, one would have to predict the opponent's movements and respond using the most efficient method, and the whole process had to be completed in one go. It could be considered an extreme way of utilizing the refinement realm's principles. This was why the various superpowers believed that the flowing water realm was a realm of painstaking effort. So long as a refinement realm expert invested enough time and effort into training, they would be able to reach the flowing water realm without fail. Meanwhile, according to the evaluation Wu Xiaoxiao received from Blue Gown, the head instructor of Crimson Emperor Special Training, she would need to train hard for at least half a year before she could reach the flowing water realm. It might even take her up to a year depending on the circume stances. The fact that you haven't touched the threshold yet shows that your training method is wrong or that you've taken a detour, SHI plus Feng said as he called up the Class Room's virtual interface. I will set up some arrow attacks now, so try to dodge and block as many as you can. We'll see where your problem lies. Other than having the function to simulate in-game characters, the superlarge Class Rooms also had the function of setting up a variety of training methods. A moment later, 30 holographic archers appeared around Wu Xiaoxiao, each archer having strength that was 30% higher than Wu Xiaoxiao's. The advantage in strength made it difficult for the testee to block them, and this could be considered one of the most rudimentary methods of testing one's dodging capabilities. After setting up the test, SHI plus Feng looked at Wu Xiaoxiao and said, if you have no more questions, we will begin now. After sweeping a glance at the archers around her and memorizing their positions, Wu Xiaoxiao nodded and said, I'm ready. At this time, everyone else in the Class Room also started paying close attention to the podium. They were all curious to find out how many arrows Wu Xiaoxiao could dodge at a time. This arrow-dodging training method was very common in GODS domain. Faced against archers with superior strength attributes, Class says other than the AS in Class SS would have difficulty achieving a good result. It was especially true for magical Class says. Within the standard 30-yard range, even a magical Class SS expert who had reached the refinement realm could, at most, dodge 12 or 13 arrows simultaneously when they were at Tier 3. After all, the arrows were incredibly fast. With the arrows needing to cover a distance of only 30 yards, even if one managed to predict where the arrows would come from, there was still a limit to the responses one could make with a Tier 3 physique. We'll start with 5 arrows for the first round, SHI plus Feng said. Woos. H. Plus woos. H. Plus woos. H. Plus immediately, 5 arrows launched into the air, each flying toward Wu Xiaoxiao from different directions. This drastically reduced the SPACE Wu Xiaoxiao had to maneuver around, and she would have no choice but to improvise if she didn't want to get cornered. However, Wu Xiaoxiao didn't even blink when facing the 5 arrows. Calmly, she did a sidestep followed by a turn, her actions resulting in the 5 arrows grazing past the edges of her robe. The degree of control she had over her body had already reached a perfect level, and she did not execute even a single unnecessary movement. What a beautifully executed evasive maneuver, Liang Feng marveled. Is this Wu Xiaoxiao's current strength? Chen Ziyou clenched her fists when she saw the unfazed expression on Wu Xiaoxiao's face. Although she had already reached the refinement realm, she was still nothing but a joke compared to the current Wu Xiaoxiao. After Wu Xiaoxiao successfully dodged the first volley of arrows, the second volley of 10 arrows quickly followed. Meanwhile, the sight of 10 archers firing their arrows at Wu Xiaoxiao simultaneously stressed Wu Lingling and the other spectating students. Such a situation was even scarier than getting surrounded by 10 monsters. After all, even if 10 monsters surrounded them, only a few of these monsters could attack them at a time. However, that was not the case for the arrows launched by archers. Moreover, with all 10 arrows coming in from different directions, even if their minds managed to perceive the trajectory of these arrows, their bodies wouldn't be able to execute the necessary amount of responses to dodge all of them. However, unlike Wu Lingling and the others, Wu Xiaoxiao still didn't feel pressured when faced with the 10 oncoming arrows. Similar to before, she moved about the podium leisurely as if she was dancing, her movements resulting in the arrows missing their mark and harmlessly grazing past her robe. It wasn't until the 4th volley of arrows that Wu Xiaoxiao got hit. Faced with 20 arrows flying at her simultaneously, Wu Xiaoxiao could no longer dodge all of them perfectly. So, she chose to block a portion of them using her staff. However, in doing so, the resulting impact forced her body out of position, and she ended the round with 3 arrows in her body. The test also came to an end along with the 4th round. Even so, Wu Xiaoxiao's performance had stunned the spectating crowd, and everyone couldn't help but applaud her in admiration. 17 arrows. Wu Xiaoxiao is truly a terrifying genius. I was nowhere close to achieving such a result when I was still at the refinement realm, Qi Lianshan exclaimed. The arrow test was one of GODS domain's more notorious strength tests. Typically, those capable of dodging 12 arrows were experts who had already reached the refinement realm, while those capable of dodging 18 arrows were flowing water realm experts. The fact that Wu Xiaoxiao had managed to dodge 17 arrows proved that she was already at the peak of the refinement realm and that she was only half a step away from reaching the flowing water realm. Her previous statement of not having reached the flowing water realm's threshold was definitely false. This is my current limit, Instructor SHI+. May I know if there are any problems with my training method? Wu Xiaoxiao asked SHI+ Feng as she got down from the podium. Wu Xiaoxiao felt that she had already done her best in this test. During the 4th round, she had perceived the trajectories of all 20 arrows. She had also executed all of her movements flawlessly. Yet, she simply couldn't dodge all of the arrows. She found it hard to imagine what else she could have done to evade more arrows. The problem is Ma. Civ, SHI+ Feng said, shaking his head as he looked at Wu Xiaoxiao. The reason why the flowing water realm is called as such is because the pract. Tina needs to keep their heart as calm as water and their body moving like flowing water. You've gotten the calm part down, but you've never even considered the other part. Rather than a player, you've treated yourself as a great mage instead. But how can I possibly block those arrows? Wu Xiaoxiao said, feeling somewhat unconvinced. She had tried blocking those arrows before. However, it was precisely because she tried to block them that she ended up breaking her stance. After all, she was only a Tier 3 Great Mage, not a Tier 3 Berserker. Is that so? Seeing that Wu Xiaoxiao looked unconvinced, SHI+ Feng put on the auxiliary guidance helmet and said, I will demonstrate it to you only once. How much you can gain from it is up to you. The superlarge Claw. Shroom's auxiliary guidance helmet allowed instructors to directly manipulate their students' in-game characters. Although the character's handling wouldn't be as smooth compared to a character controlled using a virtual gaming cabin, the owner of the controlled character could get a first-person's point of view of their character's movements. Upon receiving the prompt to share her character's control, Wu Xiaoxiao accepted it without hesitation. She was curious to see how a swordsman like Shi plus Feng would control a great mage to dodge all those arrows. Let's begin. After taking over Wu Xiaoxiao's character, Shi plus Feng promptly started the test again. Immediately, 5 arrows launched toward Shi plus Feng. However, instead of taking evasive maneuvers like Wu Xiaoxiao, Shi plus Feng swung the staff in his hand horizontally. Then, at a speed invisible to the naked eye, the 5 arrows bounced off course and struck the ground. Following the 5 arrows were 10 arrows, 15 arrows, 20 arrows, 30 arrows. Even though the arrows he faced kept increasing, Shi plus Feng did not move an inch from his position. He simply swung around the staff in his hand, knocking down every oncoming arrow before they could land on him. Moreover, his movements were so fast that they were practically invisible to the naked eye. It simply wasn't a speed the average Tier 3 Great Mage could achieve with their weapon. Even until the end of the test, Wu Xiaoxiao's character remained standing in its original position. The only difference was that a large number of arrows had appeared around its feet. Chapter 64. Above the Apex. Chapter 64. Above the Apex. This is a great mage? Liang Feng and Chen Ziyou couldn't believe their eyes when they looked at the arrows embedded in the ground around Wu Xiaoxiao's character. Magical claw. S says were known for being made out of paper in God's domain. Moreover, they were also the weakest in strength and agility. This was because most, if not all, magical claw SS players would invest the free attribute points they received from leveling up into intelligence. Thus, compared to claw S says that prioritized strength and agility, magical claw S says were vastly inferior in reaction speed and melee confrontations. Yet, when Shi plus Feng controlled Wu Xiaoxiao's character, rather than a great mage, the character performed as if it were a war god instead. How is this possible? Wu Xiaoxiao was also dumbfounded when she saw the arrows scattered around her character. Compared to Liang Feng and the other spectators, Wu Xiaoxiao had experienced firsthand the impact transmitted through the staff when Shi plus Feng deflected those arrows. Thus, she could tell that under Shi plus Feng's manipulation, the intensity of the impact was much lower than when she was the one manipulating the staff. However, compared to the significantly dampened impact force, what surprised her the most was the speed at which Shi plus Feng swung the staff. As a great mage, Wu Xiaoxiao could confidently say that she was the most knowledgeable out of everyone in the class room regarding the limitations of a great mage. Meanwhile, based on her understanding, she knew that it should be physically impossible for a great mage to swing their staff fast enough to block even 15 arrows, let alone 30 arrows. However, after replaying Shi plus Feng's actions in her mind one more time, Wu Xiaoxiao suddenly came to a realization as she asked, "Is it strength as one?" "It's good that you understand," Shi plus Feng said, nodding after removing the auxiliary guidance helmet from his head. Previously, when Wu Xiaoxiao was dodging the arrows, she had indeed exerted perfect control over her body, using minimal movements to dodge the oncoming arrows. However, by separately manipulating her various body parts, Wu Xiaoxiao had forgotten that her body was actually one big mechanism. She might have succeeded in manipulating the various parts in this big mechanism without making any unnecessary movements, but she had failed to manipulate this mechanism as a whole. She had only used individual parts of her body to cope with the oncoming arrows instead of using her entire body. This was a common problem all magical class SS players faced. They might have top-tier control over their minute movements, but they failed to exert their entire body's strength to cope against attacks like melee players. Conversely, by virtue of how melee class SS functioned, melee players had a much easier time reaching the flowing water realm. They only needed to learn how to exert minute control over their various body parts to reach the flowing water realm. Afterward, Wu Xiaoxiao looked at the arrows surrounding her again and smiled bitterly, saying, "But even if I achieve strength as one, I doubt I can perform to such an extent." She wasn't a fool. While Shi plus Feng had indeed performed the strength as one technique necessary to reach the flowing water realm, the average flowing water realm expert could only cope against 18 arrows. Yet, not only did Shi plus Feng manage to cope with 30 arrows, but he had also done so without evading any of them. He had thoroughly blocked all 30 arrows using his staff without moving a single step. It should be known that even Void Realm experts could only cope against 27 arrows after Pus. HI plussing strength as one to its limits. There was no way a Void Realm expert could deal with 30 arrows as easily as SHI plus Feng. There was no doubt that SHI plus Feng's combat standard had already reached the apex of GODS domain. No, he might even be above the apex. Amazing. Truly amazing. Qi Lianshan couldn't help but grow excited as he looked at SHI plus Feng. Never in my dreams did I imagine that such a mighty expert would appear in our Jin High University. So this is the true flowing water realm. This is the true flowing water realm. Chen Zio's eyes also lit up with excitement. Previously, she had been wondering how she could further improve herself after reaching the refinement realm. After all, even her instructor, Qi Lianshan, didn't know the exact method to do so. The only solution he could offer was to train her control over her minute movements to its limits. However, after seeing SHI plus Feng's display, she already had an idea of how she should proceed. So this is the difference between the refinement realm and flowing water realm. Liang Feng also came to a realization when he heard Qi Lianshan's words. At the same time, though, he couldn't help but fall into thought as he wondered, but why would Shadow dismiss such an expert? Is Shadow crazy? However, Liang Feng didn't dwell too deeply into the matter, focusing on the Claw SS instead. Subsequently, SHI plus Feng started providing one-on-one guidance to the rest of the Claw SS. Even Qi Lianshan couldn't help but pose a few questions to SHI plus Feng. By the end of the Claw SS, everyone in the Claw S room had received a significant harvest. It was especially true for Liang Feng, becoming the second student after Chen Zio to reach the refinement realm under SHI plus Feng's guidance. Meanwhile, after the Claw SS ended, Qi Lianshan hurriedly approached SHI plus Feng, who was just about to exit the Claw SS, and asked, "Instructor SHI plus, may I know if you will allow people outside the academy to attend your Claw SS?" Chapter 65, Rising Again in the Miniature Ancient World. Chapter 65, Rising Again in the Miniature Ancient World. Instructor SHI plus, may I know if you will allow people outside the academy to attend your Claw SS? Qi Lianshan sincerely asked as he looked at SHI plus Feng. Of course, I will pay the 10,000 academy points as usual. I will also pay for the expenses of this super large Claw S room. People outside the academy, SHI plus Feng was a little surprised by Qi Lianshan's words. Is that allowed? The academy isn't against it. It is fine so long as the instructor agrees, Qi Lianshan explained. I know this is a troublesome request for you, but I really can't think of anyone else who can help my niece, Instructor SHI plus. Upon hearing Qi Lianshan's words, the students and instructors in the hallway fell silent. Am I dreaming? Instructor Qi is actually asking Instructor SHI plus to teach his niece. What's wrong with Instructor Qi's niece? You might not know it since you're a freshman, but Instructor Qi's niece is someone amazing. She used to be a genius. Mythology specifically went out of its way to recruit, and she had already reached the refinement realm at the age of 16. However, for some reason, she stopped improving after entering mythology. Eventually, mythology kicked her out, and she is now attending Tianshu University's GODS Domain Academy, the #1 academy in our province. She still hasn't resolved this problem even until now. Seeing that Instructor Qi is asking Instructor SHI plus for help, does that mean Instructor SHI plus has a solution? That's most likely the case. This is Instructor Qi we are talking about, after all. The fact that he made such a request shows that he acknowledges Instructor SHI plus's abilities. The bystanders exchanged words with one another, and everyone couldn't help but look at SHI plus Feng with curious gazes. They wondered what abilities SHI plus Feng possessed to receive Qi Lianshan's acknowledgement. At the same time, they also came to understand that from today onward, their GODS Domain Academy would probably be welcoming its 5th senior instructor. After all, apart from Qi Lianshan, Wu Xiaoxiao and 2 of the Academy's 4 heavenly kings also acknowledged and revered SHI plus Feng greatly. This was more than enough to show how high SHI plus Feng's teaching standard was. Okay. You can bring her over the next time I have a class. SHI plus Feng said after thinking it over. Accepting Qi Lianshan's request wouldn't do him much harm, and he could also save on a significant expense. Thanks a lot, Instructor SHI plus. Qi Lianshan was overjoyed when he heard SHI plus Feng's answer. Immediately, he bid goodbye to SHI plus Feng and ran to contact his niece to have her hurry over to Jinhai City. Subsequently, when SHI plus Feng arrived downstairs and was about to exit the teaching block, Luo Tiancheng suddenly appeared in his way with a gloomy and manic look on his face. You've really hidden yourself well, SHI plus Feng. I didn't expect you to have this kind of ability. It seems President Lan and I have underestimated you, Luo Tiancheng said, sneering as he glared at SHI plus Feng. First it was Wu Lingling, then it was Chen Xiao. Now, even Wu Xiaoxiao and Qi Lianshan are treating you with respect. You really are basking in glory right now. Unfortunately, what use is there for you to have glory alone? President Lan originally only planned to put some pressure on you. However, President Lan is very angry now that you've made Shadow lose face. I heard that Blackie and the others were involved in getting you into Jinhai University. What are you trying to say? SHI plus Feng suddenly had a bad premonition. Nothing. You are now a celebrity at Jinhai University. What can Shadow possibly do to you? Luo Tiancheng said, smiling. The most we can do is take away Blackie and the others' accounts and drive them out of Shadow. After all, a small place like Shadow can't afford to accommodate big shots like you. Shadow was indeed incapable of doing anything to SHI plus Feng right now. However, it was different for Blackie and SHI plus Feng's other close friends. How ruthless of Lan Hailong. Blackie and the others have not done anything to betray Shadow, SHI plus Feng said, his expression turning cold when he thought about his brother-in-arms. Unlike him, Blackie and the others didn't have much money saved up. While it was true that they earned much higher wages than the average white-collar worker, they had also invested a lot of money into God's domain. Thus, they didn't get to save a lot of money throughout these years. Blackie and the others were no longer young. If they suddenly lost their income source and the accounts they've operated for all these years, even making a living would become a problem for them in the future. Who told them to be involved with you? Luo Tiancheng laughed. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for behaving arrogantly. President Lan wouldn't have gotten so angry if you hadn't behaved excessively in the academy and made Shadow into a laughingstock. Good. Very good. SHI plus Feng also laughed. Then, he narrowed his eyes and said, I didn't plan to deal with you people if you didn't provoke me, but since Lan Hailong wants to play, tell this to him for me. Since I can bring up Shadow to its current state, I can naturally make it disappear from God's domain as well. Good. I'll be sure to relay these words. After saying so, Luo Tiancheng let out a contemptuous laugh and walked away. The current Shadow was no longer the same as before. The guild now had world domination backing it. Let alone Wu Xiaoxiao and Qi Lianshan, even the Soulfire Adventurer team couldn't make Shadow disappear from God's domain. Meanwhile, after Luo Tiancheng left, SHI plus Feng promptly gave Blackie a call. Brother Feng? What's with the sudden call? The slightly chubby Blackie asked in surprise. I heard about your matter already. With an apologetic look on his face, SHI plus Feng said, It's all my fault that you guys. What are you talking about, Brother Feng? How can this be your fault? Lan Hailong would have found some other reason to get rid of us old people even without your matter. Moreover, we have long since felt dissatisfied with that ungrateful bastard. He has no ability whatsoever, yet he wants to blindly issue commands every day. We can't be happier now that we've left Shadow. Blackie said nonchalantly. Also, so what if we've left Shadow? With our abilities, what guild wouldn't want to recruit us? However, despite Blackie's words, SHI plus Feng knew that it wouldn't be easy for Blackie and the others to join a good guild. It was especially true now that they were in their 30s. While it was true that there were no age restrictions for players to develop their combat standards in God's domain, the brain activity of players would deteriorate once they entered their 30s. It would become much more difficult for such players to reach higher combat standards in God's domain. Hence, the various powers in God's domain would rather recruit youngsters whose combat standards were only at the Trial Tower's 5th floor than recruit older experts at the 6th or 7th floor standards. It was especially true if these older experts used to belong to other guilds. There was no saying whether these experts might be secretly working as spies. It just so happens that I have something I want to tell you guys. I recently formed a guild, so I'm wondering if you are interested in joining. Chapter 66, One Reason. Chapter 66. One reason you formed a guild, Brother Feng? Blackie was momentarily stunned when he heard SHI plus Feng's words. Then, immediately afterward, he revealed an excited look as he said, "That's great. We'll join. We'll definitely join you. Our initial plan was to contact you about joining the guild Chen Liu is forming. Anyway, with this, we can start something big in the miniature ancient world. Su Chen Liu is also forming a guild." Old memories started surfacing in SHI plus Feng's mind when he heard this name. Ice Queen Su Chen Liu. She was one of Shadow's 5 demon generals, and she was also one of the guild's few rare beauties. Lan Hailong's cousin brother had fervently tried to pursue Su Chen Liu initially, and Lan Hailong had also put a lot of pressure onto her to coerce her into entering a relations. HI plus P with his cousin. Eventually, Su Chen Liu got fed up with the Hara. Sment, choosing to delete her account and leave Shadow. At the time, many of Shadow's outer members were Su Chen Liu's fans. So, upon learning of her departure, these players also left Shadow and formed an adventurer team with Su Chen Liu. When Su Chen Liu left, SHI plus Feng would often have Blackie secretly siphon some of Shadow's resources to help Su Chen Liu's adventurer team. As a result, Su Chen Liu's adventurer team quickly made a name for themselves in the Black Dragon Empire and received many recruitment offers from large guilds. However, as far as SHI plus Feng recalled, Su Chen Liu never agreed to merge her adventurer team with any guild. "Chen Liu does have such intentions," Blackie answered. "Now that the miniature ancient world has just opened, she thinks it's a good opportunity to set up a new guild. She has long since started preparing for this, and she has even found several investors. I heard the total investment capital she got is quite significant. Now, all that's left is to form a guild in the miniature ancient world and decide which NPC city to develop in. When Chen Liu learned that we had left Shadow, she contacted us and asked us about joining her. She even said that it'd be best if I could get you to join her as well. Now that everyone's in agreement, we can start a conquest in the miniature ancient world together. She's already found investors." A slight frown formed on SHI plus Feng's face. "MHM. These investors are betting a lot on the miniature ancient world. Each of them has promised at least several hundred million to Chen Liu. We can even set up our headquarters in Jinhai City's city center with that kind of money. Moreover, with this capital, not only can we start guild operations immediately, but we can also recruit a bunch of independent experts. I believe it won't take more than 2 months before we can establish a foothold in the miniature ancient world," Blackie said in a par cyanate tone. Seeing that Blackie was about to continue speaking, SHI plus Feng quickly interrupted him and said, "I don't intend on taking any investments for the guild formed, Blackie." "No investments?" Blackie couldn't help but take a second look at SHI plus Feng when he heard SHI plus Feng's words. "Brother Feng, things are no longer the same as when God's domain first launched. Back then, everyone only treated God's domain as another game, but God's domain has already become an integral part of real life. Even if the miniature ancient world's launch is a good opportunity to establish a guild, you should know that HI plusing a guild costs a lot of money. If we don't offer enough benefits, there's no way we can attract any players to join. Not to mention, before the guild starts making a profit, the guild still needs to feed a bunch of people. I understand." I plus Feng nodded. Then, he smiled and said, "But I will think of a solution for these problems. So, are you still willing to join my guild after learning about my decision?" SHI plus Feng naturally knew about the various problems one would meet when establishing a guild in God's domain, which was why he chose to establish the Candlelight Hotel first. After all, maintaining a guild wasn't an easy task. It was especially true when the guild still lacked their own territory and guild town. He couldn't possibly ask the guild's members to work for free. People still needed to live. What is the guild's name? Blackie curiously asked instead of answering. Zero Wing. It is currently a small guild with only a few members, SHI plus Feng said. Zero Wing? Nodding, Blackie said, good name. I'll contact the others right away and meet up with you in the game. Sure. Come over to 100 Flow City, and I'll take you guys out to level, SHI plus Feng said, smiling. It's a deal, Blackie said with a helpless smile. But I'll also have to go talk to Chen Liu about this. She came to us with sincerity, after all. Do you have a way to get her to join us? SHI plus Feng asked. If she joins us, it'll boost our guild's management and overall strength significantly. Su Qianliu used to be one of Shadow's 5 demon generals, so her combat standards and talent naturally went without saying. She only failed to realize her true potential because she failed to get sufficient resources during her time with Shadow. During SHI plus Feng's previous life, Su Qianliu had been a bona fide Tier 5 Apex expert in Zero Wing. If he could get Su Qianliu to join Zero Wing again, it would undoubtedly help him a lot. I'm afraid it'll be difficult, Blackie said, shaking his head. You should know that she has her own team now, Brother Feng. She needs to be responsible for those people. Moreover, it had taken her great pains to persuade those investors. Getting her to abandon those investors to join us will be very tough. Unless we can provide her with a convincing enough reason, there is absolutely no way she will take the risk. A convincing reason? After thinking for a moment, SHI plus Feng smiled and said, sure. Give her a call, and I'll give her a convincing reason. Chapter 67, Zero Wings Benefits. Chapter 67, Zero Wings Benefits. Miniature Ancient World, 100 Flow City. Roughly 30 to 50,000 new players appeared in the city's magnificent and ancient plaza every day. The huge influx of players quickly turned the city that used to be dominated by NPCs into a city dominated by players. So, this is the miniature ancient world. The mana here is so dense. So this is why the various powers are desperately trying to get in on the action. Among the hundreds of players that had just appeared in the plaza, a few dozen players wearing beginner's gear looked around with hopeful and curious looks on their faces. Unlike most of the players around them, these several dozen players looked to be in their 30s on average. Some of them even looked like they were 35 years old or older. These players could be regarded as older generation players in the current GODS domain. Blackie, does the guild leader plan on developing in this place? This isn't a bad place. The player traffic here is comparable to royal capitals. It'll be much easier for us to recruit players in the future. But we came here a few days later than everyone else. We don't even have any good equipment right now, either. I'm afraid we'll have to work overtime if we want to catch up. Does the guild leader have any arrangements in mind, Blackie? The group of veteran players asked questions one after another as they looked at the slightly chubby man standing at the head of their group, their faces filled with expectations. Since Brother Feng asked us to come here, he should be planning on using this place as a base, Blackie said, smiling when he saw everyone's enthusiasm. Although Brother Feng says that he has already established his guild, I still don't know what the exact situation surrounding it is. We should apply to join the guild first and see what arrangements Brother Feng has for us. Everyone nodded and followed Blackie to the Adventurers Association. Then, they applied to join Zero Wing. Meanwhile, SHI plus Feng, who was planning the guild's management system and point system in the Adventurer Association's temporary guild lounge, couldn't help but smile when he saw Blackie entering the lounge. Aren't you moving a little too fast? I just finished setting the guild regulations, yet you've brought everyone here already. Anyway, come and take a look at the regulations I've set. Creating a guild wasn't an easy task. It was especially important to get the guild's organizational structure and promotion system right during the guild's inception. If these matters weren't handled properly, it would lead to big problems when more players joined the guild in the future. However, SHI Plus Feng was already familiar with these matters, so it didn't take much effort for him to write everything down. After reading the regulations SHI Plus Feng had set, Blackie couldn't help but frown and said, "Guild leader, I think your requirements for members are too high. You're asking for combat standards at the Trial Tower's 5th floor late stage just for outer members. That's higher than even the ordinary expert standard right now. You can become at least an internal member in a third-rate guild with such standards. You're even asking for the 6th floor middle stage standard for official members and the 7th floor early stage standard for internal members." Blackie felt that SHI Plus Feng was joking when he read the various rank requirements. It should be known that even veteran players like themselves were only at the 7th floor early stage standard. Meanwhile, they were already considered first-rate experts in GODS domain. Otherwise, Su Qianliu wouldn't have invited them to create a guild together. In the current GODS domain, a first-rate expert could receive an elite member's treatment at the very least in a first-rate guild, while most would receive the treatment of core members. In a small guild, a first-rate expert would be granted the position of guild executive or vice commander of a legion. Yet, in Zero Wing, first-rate experts were only qualified to become internal members. These requirements are indeed a little high for the current GODS domain, SHI Plus Feng said, not surprised by Blackie's evaluation. However, he didn't continue elaborating on the matter. Instead, he smiled and asked, "How did your talk with Su Qianliu go?" "She says she wants to meet and talk in detail first, but we need to go to Rock Devil City first. Also, she is currently in a meeting with the investors, so it'll take another 6 or 7 hours before she can meet us," Blackie said, shaking his head. "Judging by her response, I think it'll be tough to sway her thoughts. After all, she has over $1 billion in investments dangled in front of her. It's fine so long as she has agreed to meet," SHI Plus Feng said with a faint smile. "Since we have another 6 hours to waste, go and gather everyone. Since everyone trusts me so much, I naturally can't mistreat you all. Guild leader, don't tell me you're planning on digging up your life savings for us?" When Blackie heard SHI Plus Feng's words, he hurriedly said, "We might not have saved up a lot all these years, we can still make do with what we have. You don't need to dig into your pockets." Seeing Blackie's anxious look, SHI Plus Feng laughed and said, "What are you talking about? Do you think I have that much money? Didn't you think that I set the guild standards too high just now? I'm planning to let you guys see whether the benefits our guild offers are worth the high requirements. Is that the case? I'll call them over, then." Blackie nodded and left the lounge. A short time later, 63 players gathered in the lounge. Every one of these players used to be a first-rate expert in Shadow, and a few of them were even team leaders and vice-team leaders in Shadow's main force in the past. If it weren't for their growing age and stagnating development, Lan Hailong wouldn't have been so ruthless as to dismiss so many first-rate experts from the guild at a time. "What did you call us over for, guild leader? Are we going out to grind?" Everyone revealed excited expressions when they looked at SHI Plus Feng. Ever since SHI Plus Feng became Shadow's guild leader, they never really got the opportunity to team up anymore. So, it had been a very, very long time since they last teamed up and grinded together. "No, I only called you here to distribute the guild's internal member benefits to you," SHI Plus Feng said, shaking his head. "I believe all of you should be aware of the miniature ancient world's uniqueness. Here, you get the opportunity to reconstruct your mana bodies. Our guild might not have a lot of funds or resources right now, but our guild has a mana legacy that can help you construct a better mana body." After saying so, SHI Plus Feng took out the memory crystals he had prepared beforehand and distributed one to every person in the room. "This is a mana technique. Am I dreaming? Aren't mana techniques supposed to be incredibly rare? Even first-rate guilds hardly have any." When Blackie and the others saw the Holy Annihilation mana technique recorded in the memory crystals, they couldn't help but doubt their eyes. "Did you rob a GODS treasury, guild leader?" Blackie asked, his face filled with an indescribable sense of shock as he looked at SHI Plus Feng. It should be known that mana techniques were one of the best methods available for players to improve their control over mana, And every copy of a mana technique was worth over 10,000 gold. Yet, SHI plus Feng had brought out 63 copies. However, SHI plus Feng simply chuckled and did not answer Blackie's question. Instead, he said, "We don't have a lot of time, so quickly learn it and head to the Colosseum to reconstruct your mana bodies. We still need to meet with Su Qianliu and give her a convincing reason." "Right. Time is limited." Blackie also revealed an excited expression like the others after hearing SHI plus Feng's words. "We'll go right away." Chapter 68, SHI plus Feng's means. Chapter 68 SHI plus Feng's means. Due to the rarity of mana domain legacies in God's domain, even geniuses nurtured by the various superpowers had difficulty getting their hands on one. After Blackie and the others received the memory crystals from SHI plus Feng, every one of them eagerly rented an advanced training room in the Adventurers Association to inherit the Holy Annihilation mana technique. Then, in less than an hour, everyone had successfully digested all of the information contained in the memory crystals. "What's the rank of this mana technique of yours, guild leader? It feels so powerful. I never thought you could use mana in such a way. I can't believe this mana technique uses multiple magic arrays to channel the various individual elements and utilize them simultaneously," Blackie said, an ecstatic expression on his face after he processed the information he just inherited. Although Holy Annihilation was a sword technique, the method in which the technique made use of mana was simply astounding. It was completely different from how he made use of mana normally. Even if he wasn't a swordsman player, he still benefited significantly from the technique. "How is it? Are you confident in improving your mana body now?" SHI plus Feng asked, chuckling when he saw Blackie's excited look. No body had a better idea than he did regarding the might of the Holy Annihilation technique. After all, it was the ultimate technique of the Heavenly Blue Saint. It should be known that the title of Saint was granted only to people who had reached the extremities of a particular field. Even among Tier 6 Gods, one would rarely find anyone capable of achieving such a feat when competing in their respective fields of expertise. Saints were stronger than even Gods. Advanced Silver. With my current grasp over mana and combat standard, I should have no problem securing an advanced silver mana body, Blackie said excitedly. Meanwhile, upon hearing Blackie's answer, everyone else present also started wearing hopeful and expectant looks on their faces. In the past, acquiring a silver mana body was nothing more than a dream for them. Even the strongest among them had only managed to acquire an advanced bronze mana body. Meanwhile, it should be known that most Tier 4 experts only possessed basic silver mana bodies. There were even some Tier 5 experts with silver mana bodies only. If they could secure themselves an advanced silver mana body now, reaching Tier 4 would no longer be a dream. Advanced Silver. SHI plus Feng shook his head when he heard Blackie's answer. "It's still a little low. If you want to accomplish anything big in the future, you'll need to have a gold mana body at the very least." Gold! Blackie was rendered speechless momentarily when he heard SHI plus Feng's words. How can that be possible? Setting aside our control over mana, our combat standards don't even meet the mark. When he was still working in Shadow's middle management, he had researched the miniature ancient world's Colosseum. While it was true that the miniature ancient world granted everyone a chance to reconstruct their mana body, it wasn't easy to secure this opportunity. If players wanted to acquire a gold mana body, they'd have to take on the Colosseum's gold challenge. Meanwhile, the gold challenge placed a high requirement on players' combat standards. At the very least, one needed to be a half-step refinement realm expert geared in top-tier equipment to par SS the gold challenge. Currently, he was merely at the Trial Tower's 7th floor middle stage standard. He was still a little ways off from reaching the half-step refinement realm standard. He was also geared in beginner's equipment only. In his current state, the best he could do was complete the silver challenge. Meanwhile, everyone else also nodded in agreement with Blackie's words. They would naturally try to obtain a gold mana body if they could. Unfortunately, God's domain was a cruel place. Oftentimes, even if a treasure was placed right before one's eyes, one wouldn't be able to acquire it if one lacked strength. The Colosseum might not allow others to take on the challenge on the challenger's behalf, but it doesn't prohibit others from providing guidance from the side. I'll be instructing you all afterward. Although I can't guarantee that every one of you will make it, I can at least give you the possibility of par s sing, shi plus Feng said, smiling when he saw everyone's lack of confidence. Give us the possibility of par s sing? Blackie couldn't help but think that shi plus Feng was joking with them when he heard shi plus Feng's words. He also couldn't help but grow a little confused by shi plus Feng's recent behavior. It felt like shi plus Feng had become an entirely different person. It was especially true when he learned that Wu Xiaoxiao and Qi Lianshan had attended shi plus Feng's class. SS. It should be known that Wu Xiaoxiao was a bona fide refinement realm expert, while Qi Lianshan was a former flowing water realm expert. However, even if shi plus Feng possessed incredible teaching abilities, it was still too far-fetched to say that his pointers could help them par SS the gold challenge. It should be known that combat at the Tier 3 standard happened at very fast speeds. Life and death could be decided within an instant. Although having someone stronger providing guidance from the side would indeed help a little, the amount of help one could receive through this method was limited. Let's just go and give it a try first, shi plus Feng said, not bothering to explain himself any further. Even if we fail, we'll only lose a few coins. An ordinary expert's guidance might achieve limited results, but a domain realm expert's pointers were a different story. A domain realm expert possessed inhuman control over their surroundings, so it was entirely possible for them to guide others as if they were manipulating their own weapons. Although the effectiveness would be reduced significantly, a domain realm expert manipulating someone could achieve combat standard Serpa. Sing the half-step refinement realm standard. Not to mention, Blackie and the others were already close to reaching the half-step refinement realm standard. This would make it even easier to manipulate them. While shi plus Feng couldn't help them complete the epic challenge, completing the gold challenge wasn't out of the question. Blackie and the others might have their combat standards stuck on the Trial Tower's 7th floor standard. They possessed a wealth of combat experience. Their knowledge over terrain utilization, combat tactics, skill and spell usage, and mana control were comparable to that of younger refinement realm experts. Hence, shi plus Feng decided to give helping them a try. Meanwhile, everyone felt that shi plus Feng's words made sense, so they quickly followed shi plus Feng to the Colosseum. Chapter 69, Monstrous Mana. Chapter 69, Monstrous Mana. Miniature Ancient World, Rock Devil City. As a city situated deep in the mountains, Rock Devil City sat at the top of a mountain, overlooking the surrounding mountains while surrounded by a thin layer of mist. Due to the magnificent scenery here, Rock Devil City became crowded with players only a few days after the Miniature Ancient World's opening. Now, the city's player population had already exceeded 10 million, and it could be considered above average among the nearly 1,000 cities in the entire Miniature Ancient World. Apart from the magnificent scenery, Rock Devil City also had something other NPC cities did not. The Thousand Stars Tower. The Thousand Stars Tower was an ancient construction that measured several thousand meters in height. It was also because of this tower's presence that many powers had chosen to establish their base here. The Thousand Stars Tower was essentially a supersized hotel. So long as one could afford the rent, one could rent a residence inside the tower that could accommodate a large number of players. These residences were rentable guild residences in a sense. Meanwhile, in the middle zone of the Thousand Stars Tower, several hundred players clad in level 100 dark gold equipment had gathered in a residence the size of a large shop. These players were of varying ages, with the youngest being only 20 years old while the oldest was already in their 50s. All of these players carried a decisive air around them, and one could tell that these people were veterans of combat at a glance. They were undoubtedly experts who had experienced numerous life or death trials. They were completely different from the sheltered talents nurtured by the various large guilds. Is there even a need to talk with them, Commander? A bald, middle-aged Guardian Knight asked as he looked at the elegant and lovely woman before him. The level 102 Guardian Knight looked like he was in his mid-40s, and he wore dark grey heavy armor while carrying a spear and ASHI plus ELD on his back. Of course, the woman wearing a noble light blue robe said, sipping on a cup of hi plussing tea as she looked at the mountains outside the window. We were only able to form an adventurer team in the Black Dragon Empire back then because of Blackie and the guild leader secretly supporting us. We are also in need of experts currently. Now that they've been kicked out of Shadow, it's a good opportunity for us. But by the looks of it, the guild leader plans to operate without investors. How are we supposed to negotiate with him? The bald knight said. The current GODS domain is no longer the same as 10 years ago. Establish. Plussing a large guild is even more difficult than establish. Plussing a listed company. Every aspect of a guild requires money. I'd have no comments if he has money, but does he have any, though? Moreover, even if he does have the money, I still don't think he is qualified to be the guild leader. Times have changed, and strength is everything now. He is no more than a tier 3 expert even at his peak, and his combat standard is at the half-step refinement realm at maximum. How can he compare to you, Commander? Hearing the Guardian Knight's words, the several hundred players nearby nodded their heads in agreement. At present, Su Qianliu had already become an expert standing at the peak of Tier 4, and she was a well-known expert even in the Black Dragon Empire. She was completely different from when she was still one of Shadow's 5 demon generals. It was also because of her strength that those investors were willing to invest so much money into helping them establish a guild. That's different. I only got lucky and made a breakthrough, Su Qianliu said, shaking her head. I am not interested in the guild leader position, either. Personally, I'd prefer if we could pull the guild leader and the others to our side. That way, our guild will have a more stable time developing. If that's your decision, we will naturally comply, the Guardian Knight said, sighing. Then, he chuckled and continued, also, you don't have to worry about convincing them. After all, they have no idea how strong we are right now. They probably still think that we are a weak adventurer team. Shadow was based in the Star Moon Kingdom, so it was utterly unaware of how their adventurer team fared in the Black Dragon Empire and how much improvement their adventurer team had made. Initially, their adventurer team had only started as a small group of several hundred players. Now, though, the adventurer team already had several thousand members. Moreover, their adventurer team even had 3 refinement realm experts, 10 half-step refinement realm experts, and nearly 200 first-rate experts. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that their adventurer team's main force was stronger than even Shadow's main force. Otherwise, they wouldn't have come to Rock Devil City and been able to occupy a residence in the Thousand Stars Tower's middle zone. After all, the cost of renting a residence here was 100,000 gold and 100,000 magic crystals per month. Isn't it almost the appointed time? Why aren't they here yet? Do they really think we have a lot of time on our hands? A tall and beautiful girl carrying a 2-handed saber that was as long as she was tall said in dissatisfaction. Just wait a little bit longer, Su Qianliu said as she looked at the impatient girl. Then, the corners of her mouth curved up slightly as she continued, by the way, I heard that you'd made significant improvements again recently, Snow. Even Firecloud says that he is no longer a match for you. I guess it won't be long before you become our adventurer team's #1 expert. The beautiful girl was named Happy Snow, and she was their adventurer team's pride. Not only did she reach the refinement realm at a young age, but she had even mastered an advanced combat technique. Her talent was comparable to that of the various superpowers top-tier geniuses. Meanwhile, the fact that she managed to defeat Firecloud, a vice-commander in their adventurer team, further validated her strength. You're making fun of me again, Big Sis Qianliu, Happy Snow said. Then, she glared at the bald Guardian Knight, who was scratching his head awkwardly, and she said, I only won because Uncle Firecloud let me. He never fights me seriously. While Su Qianliu and her companions were chatting merrily with each other, several dozen people appeared outside the residence's courtyard. They're finally here, Firecloud, the bald Guardian Knight, said when he saw SHI plus Feng's group walking into the courtyard. Then, in a contemptuous tone, he said, it seems they brought quite a few first-rate experts with them. Unfortunately, they are overestimating themselves if they think they can convince us with just that. After saying so, Firecloud snapped his finger. Immediately afterward, the players standing around him stopped suppressing their auras exploding forth like an erupting volcano. Many of the players walking on the street outside the residence were even frightened by this situation. Putting on a show of power, SHI plus Foam couldn't help but smile and shake his head when he noticed Firecloud and the others unleash HI plusing their auras simultaneously. Alright, then. Blackie, it's best if you show them who's stronger. Roger. Blackie immediately grew excited when he heard SHI plus Foam's words. Then, he turned around and said, "Brothers, no need to be polite with them." As soon as Blackie finished speaking, the Zero Wing members present quietly nodded and stopped suppressing their auras and mana as well. Boom. Immediately, with Zero Wing's members as the center, a towering pillar of mana visible to the naked eye appeared in the middle of the courtyard. The terrifying aura Zero Wing's members radiated also drowned out the auras of Firecloud and the others. How is this possible? Firecloud couldn't believe his eyes when he looked at Blackie and the others. Chapter 70, Mana Bodies Galore. Chapter 70, Mana Bodies Galore. How can they release such strong mana? This mana. What are the ranks of their mana bodies? Shock filled the hearts of Firecloud and the others as they looked at Blackie's group of 63. At the same time, they couldn't help but grow curious and confused. Everyone present was a veteran expert in GODS domain, so they knew that mana radiating from a player's body could only come from two sources. The first source was weapons and equipment that housed powerful mana. The second source was the mana contained within the player's mana body. Typically, weapons and equipment that carried powerful mana were fragmented legendary items at the very least, and few were epic items. The miniature ancient world had only opened recently, so fragmented legendary items couldn't possibly appear among players yet. As for epic weapons and equipment that carried powerful mana, every article was incredibly rare. Even first-rate guilds wouldn't have more than a handful of such epic items. Hence, there was only one explanation for the powerful mana that Blackie and the others radiated. The mana body. Only by having powerful mana bodies could Blackie and the others manipulate and radiate such powerful mana. The mana they currently radiated was so strong that it had elevated the mana density in the courtyard by a small margin. At this time, Su Qianliu's eyes suddenly flashed purple as she scanned Blackie and the others. Immediately afterward, a look of shock appeared on her face. "What's their situation, Big Sis Qianliu?" Happy Snow asked curiously when she noticed Su Qianliu using her special identification skill. Su Qianliu didn't try to hide the information she just discovered as she said, 14 gold mana bodies and 49 peak silver mana bodies. 14 gold mana bodies and 49 peak silver mana bodies? Happy Snow's eyes widened in disbelief as she turned to look at Blackie and the others. "Uncle Firecloud, didn't you say that they were people Shadow dismissed?" Mana bodies served as the foundation of players in GODS domain. The stronger a player's mana body, the stronger their foundation and the greater their future growth potential. So long as an expert possessed an advanced silver mana body, even if they weren't a genius, first-rate guilds would still cultivate them as if they were geniuses. The reason for this was simple. So long as said expert's combat standard reached the Trial Tower's 7th floor middle stage, it was almost certain that they could reach Tier 4 if they had sufficient resources. As for the peak silver mana body, which was also the mana body Su Qianliu had reconstructed through the Colosseum, it granted players the foundation to reach Tier 5. Even in the various superpowers, an ordinary expert with a peak silver mana body would receive priority training on par with top-tier geniuses. As for the gold mana body, that was something unattainable by the average expert. At least, that should have been the case. After all, even among the various superpowers, less than one-third of their peak experts possessed a gold mana body. Normally, even the various superpowers dared not dismiss a group of experts with such powerful mana bodies, let alone a second-rate guild. Yet, Shadow had done exactly that. At this time, Firecloud had no idea how to answer Happy Snow's question. After all, he, too, failed to process the current situation. For a moment, he even suspected whether SHI plus Fong and the others were the same people he knew. According to his understanding, Shadow didn't even have the ability to muster such a force, much less have the leeway to dismiss it. While Firecloud and the others were still feeling shocked and confused, SHI plus Feng raised his hand and signaled for Blackie and the others to retract their mana. Then, he turned to Su Qianliu and said, "Qianliu, I believe Blackie has already told you the details of the situation, so I won't repeat them. All I want to know is whether you are willing to join us right now." Su Qianliu grew hesitant when she heard SHI plus Feng's straightforward question. Meanwhile, seeing Su Qianliu's hesitance, Blackie advised, "Don't hesitate, Qianliu. Nothing can go wrong with following Brother Feng. Isn't it just a bunch of credits? So long as we have strength, would we need to worry about earning credits?" Firecloud, who had strongly advocated for Su Qianliu to give up on SHI plus Feng's group previously, had surprisingly chosen to remain silent right now. He simply stood aside and waited for Su Qianliu's answer. Firecloud wasn't the only one who took such a stance. At this time, the other members of Su Qianliu's adventurer team had also turned to look at their commander with expectant gazes. They might have written off SHI plus Feng's guild previously, but after seeing Blackie and the others, they'd be blind, deaf, and RETAR dead if they couldn't see Zero Wing's potential. It should be known that Blackie and the others were all first-rate experts. With the current mana bodies they possessed, at least 90% of them would reach Tier 4 in the future. In other words, Zero Wing would have at least 50 Tier 4 experts under its command. Only pseudo-first-rate guilds and above could possibly field such a force. In comparison, the guild they were creating could, at best, reach the third-rate standard after 2 or 3 months of development, and that was under the condition that they had ample financial support. Meanwhile, unless Su Qianliu or Happy Snow could reach Tier 5, their guild would, at most, develop into a top-tier second-rate guild in the future. "Don't look at me like that. I know what you guys are trying to say," Su Qianliu said, a bitter smile on her face as she shook her head. Then, she looked at SHI plus Feng and continued, "Guild leader, I can agree to join Zero Wing with my team, but if I do so, I'm afraid we'll lose the chance to enter the ancient demon court that we found." "Ancient demon court? There's an ancient demon court here." SHI plus Feng's eyes lit up with excitement when he heard Su Qianliu's words. However, he quickly suppressed his restless heart as he asked, "Can you elaborate on the situation, Qianliu?" At this moment, apart from SHI plus Feng, Blackie and the others also grew excited when they heard the mention of an ancient demon court. An ancient demon court. That was something that had set off many wars in God's domain in the past. As the name Ancient Demon implied, ancient demons were demon gods that had existed since the birth of God's domain. They were ancient demon gods, so to say. Meanwhile, the strength of these ancient demon gods varied significantly, with the stronger ones rivaling gods and the weaker ones rivaling inferior dragons. A portion of God's domain's archaic species were also the descendants of these ancient demon gods. During ancient times, demon gods were one of the pinnacle races in God's domain. They possessed their own civilization, and ancient demon courts were towns and cities in which these demon gods resided. Needless to say, the treasures and legacies available in these ancient demon gods were incredibly abundant. However, the ancient demon courts weren't just simple treasure troves. As someone who had experienced the greater God's domain, SHI plus Feng knew much more about the ancient demon courts than Blackie and the others. On the surface, the ancient demon courts might seem like the residence of demon gods, but they were far more complicated than that. The existence of the ancient demon courts involved core secrets of God's domain, and one example of these secrets was the demise of the ancient demon gods. Chapter 71, Ancient Demon Court. Chapter 71, Ancient Demon Court. The Book of Ends stored in the Fire Dragon Empire's library recorded some information on ancient demon gods. The ancient demon gods were a race that used to rival dragons, and the race was only second to the god race. Yet, as powerful as they were, the ancient demon gods had suddenly vanished from God's domain within a span of less than a year, leaving behind only descendants with trace bloodlines. Meanwhile, It was also because of the ancient demon God's disappearance that God's domain's ancient era came to an end. However, only after gaining access to the greater God's domain did SHI plus Feng understand part of the reason why the ancient demon Gods had disappeared from God's domain. The ancient demon Gods had touched upon God's domain's forbidden technologies. Meanwhile, these forbidden technologies laid slumbering in the various ancient demon courts, and they were the main reason why the greater God's domain's various powerhouses had desperately searched for ancient demon courts. After all, some of these powerhouses had only managed to gain their achievements and status in the greater God's domain thanks to the forbidden technologies they acquired from ancient demon courts. During SHI plus Feng's previous life, due to his subworld lacking knowledge about the ancient demon courts, they hadn't put much importance on exploring and exploiting the various ancient demon courts found. As a result, when they gained access to the greater God's domain, the various outerworld powers had severely oppressed them, and they had very nearly lost their subworld and their spot in the tie-on between parallel worlds. SHI plus Feng never thought that he would come across an ancient demon court so quickly in this life. So, how could he not be excited by this piece of news? The reason why I managed to attract so many investors was mainly because of this ancient demon court, Su Qianliu said, sighing. The value of an ancient demon court goes without saying. It is especially true when it is located in the miniature ancient world. Those investors naturally know this as well. However, you should also know that exploiting an ancient demon court isn't an easy task. You can't even get past the entrance without sufficient strength. So, the joint exploration of the ancient demon court was listed as one of the conditions in the partners' HI plus P contract. In exchange for funding our guild, we will have to share the ancient demon court's harvests with those corporations. At the same time, those corporations will be sending the main force of the first-rate guilds they have shares in to help us in exploiting the ancient demon court. After discussion, we settled for a 70-30 split in their favor. I already signed the contract and told them the ancient demon court's location yesterday. They have even scouted out the area already. If we renege on the contract now, they can simply remove us from the equation and monopolize the ancient demon court for themselves. They also have the strength to do that. You should have told us sooner if you found an ancient demon court, Qianliu. Blackie said with a pained expression. The miniature ancient world had only been open for a few days, so it meant that Su Qianliu had only discovered the ancient demon court not long ago. They could have secretly monopolized the ancient demon court if she had told them about her discovery earlier. Hearing Blackie's words, Firecloud said in dissatisfaction, "What can we do about it? How were we supposed to know about your potential? Now that things are already like this, if we want to acquire the ancient demon court's resources, we will have no choice but to accept their investment. They will only get 49% of the guild's shares, anyway. We still hold the right to make decisions with 51% of the shares." Upon hearing Firecloud's words, Su Qianliu and Blackie looked toward SHI plus Feng for a decision. If they accepted the investment, not only would they receive ample funding, but they could also acquire the ancient demon court's resources. The only problem was that they would have to give away a significant portion of the guild's shares. Even so, they would still hold the right to make decisions in the guild. However, if they refused the investment, they'd have nothing to do with the ancient demon court anymore. "I don't plan on accepting any investments," SHI plus Feng said, shaking his head. "I already stated clearly that I do not wish for Zero Wing to be put under any restrictions. Even a possible restriction is unacceptable. I guess we'll have to give up on the ancient demon court, then," Su Qianliu said, finding this situation a pity. She understood SHI plus Feng's personality. Since SHI plus Feng had said that he wouldn't accept any investments, he definitely wouldn't be accepting them. The ancient demon court was something her adventurer team had discovered by luck. Originally, she thought it would become their capital to establish a guild in the miniature ancient world. Yet, now, it had become the possession of those major corporations. Hearing SHI plus Feng's decision, the members of Su Qianliu's adventurer team couldn't help but lower their heads and sigh as well. The ancient demon court was a treasure trove that even the various superpowers would fight for. Yet, now, they had given one away with nothing to show for. Give up. Who said we are giving up? Shi plus Feng couldn't help but roll his eyes when he heard Su Chenliu's words. Then, in a serious tone, he said, since we were the ones who discovered the ancient demon court, it naturally belongs to us. But those corporations have already dispatched their teams, Su Chenliu said awkwardly. I talked about this with them during our meeting just now. Originally, we would be heading for the ancient demon court after we were done talking with you, guild leader. Blackie was rendered speechless by Su Chenliu's words. He didn't think that Su Chenliu would act so decisively. At this time, Happy Snow's eyes suddenly flashed with inspiration as she suggested, how about we explore the ancient demon court with them without telling them about our plans first? You wish, Firecloud said, shaking his head and smiling as he looked at Happy Snow's scheming expression. Do you take these corporations for fools? They've already listed all of the preventive measures in the contract. Their teams will be holding on to the loot we get during the exploration. Only after the guild they've invested in is fully established will they hand our portion of the loot to us, or rather to the guild. Tell me it isn't true, Big Sis Chenliu, Happy Snow said as she looked at Su Chenliu in dismay. Nodding, Su Chenliu said, that is indeed the case. There are over 1 billion credits involved, after all. Those corporations also place significant importance on the ancient demon court's items. Doesn't that mean we won't get anything? Happy Snow asked in frustration. You don't have to do all these unnecessary things. Looking at Su Chenliu, Shi plus Feng said, just tell them that our partners' Hi plus P contract is dissolved. What about the ancient demon court, then? Su Chenliu asked. We will go over there now and reclaim it, of course, Shi plus Feng said. Then, he scanned the experts belonging to Su Chenliu's adventurer team and continued, you guys are already prepared, right? Exploring an ancient demon court was indeed a challenging task. However, it wasn't so challenging that a first-rate power couldn't raid it. Meanwhile, it should be known that everyone present was a first-rate expert at the very least. If they set aside the difference in equipment, there was only a small difference between the strength of their team and a first-rate power's main force. Su Chenliu also took a look at everyone present. Although their current team was no match for the teams those corporations organized, they weren't without a fighting chance. So, after gritting her teeth, she said, okay, I'll go tell them now. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.